It all began with this photo, a still picture of the cast and crew of the silent film Scarlet West. When I first saw it, I hadn't seen a photo of Victor before, so I scanned the faces looking for some family resemblance, something to identify with. Nothing. Now, after all this work we've done, he seems so familiar, even though he died 20 years before I was born. I'll point him out to you. He's in the front middle, squatting down. He's wearing a hat we've seen him wear in many photos. President of Victor Shuler Photo Company and Out West Pictures. Friend of Paul Heffler, the well-known educational filmmaker. And cameraman for the silent film director Otis Thayer. My great-great-grandfather, Victor Shuler.
You look at him on his haunches in that picture. He's not touching anybody, and he's strictly on his own. He's not sitting down. He's not kneeling down. He's got his feet underneath him. Everybody else is doing something else, goosing somebody or.
All the family gathering, he always had cameras and light meters.
Did he let you play with it or touch it?
No, he didn't. He was pretty protective of that stuff.
Oh yeah, he always had cameras. He was always taking pictures. Matter of fact, he always gave me pointers on how to take pictures.
He was good people. Him and Grandma both, they were both crazy people. She was. She'd get to laughing and going on. But he was reserved, I guess you would say.
He was a stern, strict man. He was not unkind, but he was very strict.
Grandpa and I sat down and didn't do much talking. I was looking at the carpet. I was trying to think of something to say. I asked him about his carpet. I said, "Where'd you get the carpet?" He said, "Store." Okay, I think it's about time to go outside.
Grandma never elaborated when she told me he made movies. That was all she said. He made movies. And I said, oh, okay. And that was that.
Either they didn't know about it or they didn't want to talk about it. I don't know if there's a reason. Who knows?
He really didn't talk about his past so much.
Two things I don't remember ever discussing with him: religion, silent movies. I can tell you that for a fact. Anything else, you talk to him with them.
I should have gone and said, hey, tell me about this movie making thing of yours, and I should have gotten details, and I just didn't. I was bad about that as a child. I just did not delve into things and find out what was going on. It's like I was almost afraid to ask questions. But now we pay for it. In our old age, you don't know nothing.
But why would Victor, the president of two prolific production companies, fade away from the industry while his peers, Paul Heffler, Benjamin Klein, George Benoit, would go on to have successful careers into the 1940s and 1970s? To answer that question, we went out to where this picture was originally taken, Dolores, Colorado, where the Scarlet West was shot in 1924.
Well, the plot was sort of George Custer's last stand. And one of the reviews said it was the best one so far. Of course, this was 1925 when it was finally shown. Was one of the best versions of all of that. But I never, none of us have ever seen the film, so we don't know. We've seen the still photos. Clara was the actress that was the star, and she supposedly has a romantic alliance with one of the soldiers that had something to do with the story. And then this Cardelanch, who was a Native American, had gone to white school, and he came back to his tribe, and he fell in love with her, and that was one of the side plots. And then there was the scouts and going after Custer and so on.
The Dolores Star, they talked about the great impact that it had here, and everybody was really, this economy really needed a boost, and it really gave them a boost, and everybody here was happy as they could be that they made the movie.
I think with the people that were there, they just did whatever was needed. Because I don't know what Uncle Frank did, but it looks like these were the people that might have been in uniform and things. And if you look at these people, 90% of them, except probably the directors and your grandfathers and all, it was local people. So it definitely made a difference.
Well, he liked it $5 a day. He was getting pretty good.
That was pretty good money for back then.
That was good money. Yeah, all the cowboys quit and went to the movies.
Really?
They said it was better than that $30 a month.
There was a gardener. His name was Gardner, and I don't know whether it was George Gardner or his brother, but they wanted him to do a stunt, and they asked him how much they were going to charge, you know, $100 or whatever dollars. You know, they paid him real well for if they had to take a fall or something. And so he said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. If you'll let me kiss Clara Bow, I'll do the stunt. And of course, she didn't agree. She wouldn't agree to it, so they had to go ahead and pay him.
Them Indians would ride by and take a swing at them. Them guys got to grabbing a handful of gravel and dropping it down the barrel of them black powder guns. The Indians come by. The black powder wasn't empty. Dad said it took Frank Paul 2 or 3 days to get him to come back to work.
They were not happy.
I don't blame him.
I know it was a big deal, and everybody in Montezuma County and probably La Plata County were very interested and excited about it. But by the time I was old enough, in the 40s, when I was old enough to remember things, they had gone, you know, it was something that had happened long enough ago that they didn't really talk about it a lot.
Well, there was a lot of excitement and you know, community pride, and a lot of times the public would go up, they were allowed to come up and watch the filming, and just the novelty. I mean, this was 1924 out here in the country where there was no movie theaters to speak of, not very many, and it was a new thing, and they were happy to have a part in it. And you know, the story continues today. Look at all the years later. It's still important to them.
As we began researching the filming of the Scarlet West, we discovered very quickly how many current members of the community have ties to the filming of that silent film some 90 years ago plus. And that I found very interesting. It's common in this area because of the longevity of the residency of these families in this area. You know, you're talking about an area where for many of them, these large acreages are their livelihood. It's still an agricultural community. They've been here for several generations. As you'll see today, the township that was constructed, and of course that involved local materials and local folks that were supporting the filming and creation of the sets for that film. So obviously an economic impact, but most of that, of course, today has disappeared just physically. There are some scattered remnants of the old township and the old fort site that were built for the filming, but they are no longer standing. But all of this milled lumber, you know, very likely was part of that township construction. That milled lumber, some of the stuff that's along the edge there. This area really, this was used as a base camp for the crew that was involved in filming the Scarlet West. So we have a photograph that has their tents out here just west of this cabin, and this cabin actually is included in a couple of those photographs that we have from that Scarlet West era. The thing that drew me out there was an old photograph that Joyce had collected that showed a wagon train heading to that old fort site, and I got it in my mind that I wanted to stand in the place where that picture was taken and see how that looks today. With the only rub being that these trees are considerably larger, but when I was trying to reconstruct that, really felt like this was about the angle of that photograph that we have of that wagon train going into the fort, with the fort sitting right down here. You know, it's an interesting story, and part of the history that Joyce has managed to uncover is that piece that included use of tribal members as extras for that film. And I think one of the relatively rare films that used actual tribal members in their filming. So there were, language barriers, obviously, and it'd be fun to hear some of those stories about trying to overcome those language barriers during the filming and make everybody understand just exactly what action meant when you yelled it,
Makes me think about Grandpa and what he might have been thinking about while he was here. I'm sure he was thinking about different camera angles and different shots that he might try to get. And I don't know if he was thinking about Grandma back home with the 4 boys or not. I don't know about that.
The Scarlet West was released in 1925. It was first shown in Denver and achieved a worldwide distribution before it made its way to nearby Cortez and then Dolores. This was only 4 short years away from the stock market crash of 1929, where Victor, along with countless others, would lose everything he'd worked for.
Mr. Heffler went on to do other movies, like went to Africa and some educational materials and things like that. But when sound came, it seemed that Mr. Shuler didn't care to invest in the equipment then for talkies.
I have a couple of pictures of the studio he purchased and what they had to do to make it. I think it was an old skating rink or roller rink. He had a bunch of old movies, silent movies that he later destroyed, and I'm assuming they were his and he made them there.
And what happened to those movies?
He burned them all.
He felt like a failure, and he didn't want anything to remind him of it. Because, you work hard, and all of a sudden at the end of it, it's outdated before you got to finish your career in it.
Figure when you die, you just mount to a cardboard box full of paperwork and pictures. No monuments, no nothing. That this is what nobody wants to look at anymore.